Am I the a-hole for not sharing my inheritance with my cousins? So I'm 31 female. My mom passed away when I was 4. She was 26 and dad has never been in the picture, so after my mom's death, her twin brother, my uncle Jack, became my legal guardian. He passed away suddenly 2 months ago. My grandparents started a watchmaking company over 50 years ago. They ran it for over 40, retired a decade ago, and my uncle took over. When I went to live with my uncle, he just started working for the company full-time after graduating college, and instead of having a babysitter, he would take me to work if I was not in school. My uncle met Melissa when I was 10. She was very nice to me. They got married when I was 12 and had their first child a few months later. When my cousin Mark, 20, was born, things changed. She would stop packing my lunch and other stuff. I know that she's not my mom, but before, she would just look at me with a smile, but after, she would barely acknowledge my existence. They had 2 more sons. Anyways, I worked there part-time as a teen, helping around, and Uncle taught me a few things. Uncle took over the company in 2012. My grandparents gave it to him and he took it from 145 employees to almost 1,000 in 10 years. Even started a watchmaking school. I went to college, then Uncle hired me full-time as a designer. Time went on. Mark would work for like 4 hours a week and get a full week's pay, and I've heard all my cousins and my aunt talk about how watchmaking is stupid, and that is too much for something that only tells you the time. This comment is particularly ignorant, as we don't make only watches anymore, and I thought Mark paid just enough attention to know that. But it seems I was wrong, so it never seemed like they were interested in the company. Back to now. After my uncle's funeral, my aunt informed me that they were selling the company, as it's useless to them, but they were willing to let me make an offer first. I was heartbroken. I just lost my uncle and was probably going to lose my job because there was no way I could get the money. Then last week, my uncle's will was read. All the money was divided in equal parts. Among me, my cousins, and my aunt. She got as part of the house and I got the company. 100% of the company. They were furious. I now have some friends saying it's their right to be upset for not getting something they understood they were getting. Extended family calling me a thief because it was their father's company. And my cousins texting me things like, just give it to us. We're contesting the will, meeting our lawyer tomorrow, or we're going to destroy you for what you're doing. My grandparents are on my side, but I just feel like I'm being harassed by all these people. Edit? I can't fire Mark right now. If I do, it would be a huge risk. He has flexible hours written on his contract, and is salaried. And with all this drama, I am getting a lawyer to deal with us. And I don't talk to my aunt and my 2 oldest cousins. The youngest is 11. I just open their messages to take screenshot. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. They're just angry their payday was ruined. Your uncle clearly wanted his company to stay in the family. That's why he gave it to you. This is it. It's her uncle's company. No, it's a family company. Opie's grandparents were the uncle's parents. Opie literally is in the same tier of descendants as any of the cousins. The difference is, she'll keep it in the family. Opie, you're not the a-hole. Ignore the sharks. Good for the uncle for leaving his/the family legacy to someone based on merit not blood, aka direct descendant. This is usually how companies go bankrupt after the founder passed. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Your grandparents would have divided the company with your mom and uncle. It's at least 50% yours. You have added equity by working there, and they have all been compensated fairly with cash and housing. Sadly, you should let your cousin go if he's just there for the paycheck and not working. This is what your uncle wanted, honoring him by doing exactly what it says in the will. Your cousins will continue to be furious. They may even sue, but continue to honor your uncle even if you have to go to court. Next story. Am I the a-hole for selling my portion of the house because my sister made my wife watch her daughters? I, 28 male, and my sister, 45, co-own a house together. It was a duplex, but we ripped out the wall in the living room years ago, so now it's a one big house. She has 2 girls. My wife and I have 2 boys and 1 on the way. It's a giant house, and there's still 3 extra bedrooms left over. My sister recently has been pretty much conning my wife into taking her daughters with her everywhere. She does this very so often, honestly. She takes needing a break to the extreme, and it's always when the warm weather hits. Because my sister is really overweight, gets overheated, and can't handle her children during these times. So anyways, she's been asking my wife pretty much daily to take the girls with her every single place she goes. My wife ends up feeling cornered as she doesn't like confrontation and just gives in. And what really angered me was that this even bled into my children's first ever concert. We got tickets well in advance, and unfortunately, I ended up breaking my hip and couldn't go. So there was a ticket left over. I was destroyed over not being able to go. I was in the hospital, but my wife decided to still bring the boys. Then she calls when they got there, and I find out that my sister basically told my wife how unfair it was that there was an extra ticket that her oldest daughter could use, and she didn't even ask to bring her. Needless to say, the kid ended up being taken to the concert. And by the time my wife got to the concert and called me, she was crying and completely overwhelmed and didn't even enjoy herself. My niece has ADHD and is one hell of a handful, so there was no relaxing. I got home 2 days ago and went up one side of my sister and down the other. Told her that she had to take our kids this weekend so my wife could go and relax after being conned into parenting 2 extra kids for so long and not getting a single stroke of a second to herself. My sister got angry, saying my wife could have just said no. But my sister never takes no for an answer, so this response was truly manipulative. So in turn, I told her I'm selling my portion of the house, which means she would have to sell or convert back to duplex, which they don't have the money for, because I don't want to be around her BS anymore. She's been begging and crying to us for 2 days, trying to take our kids and kissing our butts. This home has been in our family for 6 to 8 generations, so my sister doesn't want to sell. But I have to stick to this because I don't trust her. Am I the a-hole? Edited to add, well, I can appreciate people saying that this is an open-ended threat on my end and that I would be responsible for the cost of converting back to a duplex. Please understand that I've already spoken to a few lawyers about this, as I thought the same thing. And no, it's not on me financially to do this because of how the co-ownership deed is written. I'm not sure the in-depth legalities, but I did speak on behalf of this issue profusely because I too thought it would be my obligation to rebuild a duplex with my intention to sell. But legally, it is not on me for whatever reason. Not the a-hole. You were all insane people for tearing down that wall in the first place, lol. Exactly. Good walls make good neighbors. Not the a-hole. I don't think a wall would stop that sister. Sister is super entitled. The wall wouldn't have even slowed her down. She'd have just dumped an OP and his family. Not the a-hole. What your sister has been doing to your wife is pretty scummy. Though I'm honestly surprised that you let it get to the point where you were so fed up you decided to sell the house. Either way, she needs to take responsibility for her own children and not have the ability to corner your wife into doing it for her. Also, if the home has been in the family for generations, the former duplex may not meet the zoning codes for lot size and zone. Legally not conforming uses are permitted unless they have been abandoned for a year in most jurisdictions. It's standard language in local zoning codes, so it may not be possible to convert it from a one-family back to a duplex. From my understanding, my sister didn't take the proper measures to convert to a duplex to begin with. I was 16 when the wall was ripped out, so I'm unsure how that will affect things long-term either. I haven't gotten that in-depth with the lawyers. Next story. Am I the a-hole for bringing up the fact my brother hasn't had a steady job since he graduated 3 years ago? Today we had a little barbecue for Memorial Day at my mom's house, and my brother, who's 21, was noticeably tired and not really speaking unless spoken to, but has kind of always been like that. It was enough to be noticeably worse today though, so I asked him how he was doing, and he said he's fine and just had a long night with his friends on PlayStation. I told him he should have probably planned to go to sleep early so he'd have energy for the barbecue today, and he sarcastically responded that he couldn't help it. I regret my response to this, but I said, maybe you'd have more energy if you had a job. His demeanor quickly shifted, and he was pretty insulted, but it's been a recurring argument between us that he needs to get off his butt and help our mom with rent, but for some reason he just doesn't. No matter how hard we poke and pet him, he won't budge. He's not in college, and the only money he makes is when he goes logging with my dad, which isn't really a job and only happens a few times a month. Eventually, he started crying and ran to his room. My mom was angry with me for ruining the barbecue, which I didn't expect to happen, and told me I should probably leave. I'm a 23 female and I've had a job ever since high school, and I'm in college currently. I moved out when I was 19 and never looked back. But for some reason, my mom isn't as strict with my brother as she was with me. She occasionally sends him links to places that are hiring, and that's it. Honestly, he's got a heart of gold and lots of friends and family who adore him. I just wished he'd get a job to help my overworked mom out. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments before the mini update. But I said, maybe you'd have more energy if you had a job. This right here is a cheap shot and doesn't even make sense. Not to mention a drama starter. Can't blame your mom for asking you to leave. You tout that you've had a job since high school, go to school currently and live on your own. Yet here you are starting unnecessary childish drama at a family barbecue. You're the a-hole. You are taking a problem that has nothing to do with you and making it your problem. Comments like that are not going to help him. He's an adult. His job situation is his to deal with. And if he's not paying rent to your mom, that's up to your mom to sort out. I also think you are not accounting for details you may be unaware of here, like if he may be dealing with some mental health issues or other problems in his life. It sounds like resentment from the unequal treatment between Opie and her brother. That's what I was thinking. There's some golden child / scapegoat energy here, but I give her a soft you're the a-hole because she did start drama at a family event. In your comments, you say that your brother has anxiety, depression, is on meds, and is in therapy. Clearly, he is struggling, probably more than you know, and trying to manage life the best he can as a 21-year-old. I'm not sure why you feel the need to insert yourself into any of this, to be honest. Seems kind of like you enjoy comparing yourself to him and trying to make him feel beneath you. The fact that you chose to hound him about this, something that really is none of your business, in front of others was totally out of line. You're the a-hole. You owe your brother an apology. He needs encouragement and support, not condescending lectures and scolding. The title says graduated 3 years ago, so remember that this is a kid whose final high school years were COVID years. I know this seems like an excuse, but we're really seeing serious mental health issues and an almost adult version of a newborn's failure to thrive by some of those students. His high school education and social development were very different than what Opie would have experienced. He needs help and support to move on, not additional guilt. Now for the mini update. I apologized earlier today and bought him lunch. We're also gonna try family therapy and see how it goes. He also accepted my offer of trying to help him get a job at my place of work. He also told me he was thinking about upping his meds in the last few days, and yesterday's events was the straw that broke the camel's back. Everything seems to be dandy now, but I may make a post in the future if he doesn't keep his word about keeping a job at my place of work. Last story. Am I the a-hole for wanting to live with my father over my mother despite his cheating? I, 19 female, grew up with a very one-sided family dynamic. I have a great relationship with my father, and we have always gotten along with each other. He was way more present in my upbringing than my mother, and I overall just prefer being with him. He was always there for me and never prioritized his job over the family. My mother, on the other hand, was more focused on her work than being a part of my life, and that has really drawn a wedge between us. I don't hate my mom, but I don't have nearly as close of a connection with her as I have with my father. Her work was always prioritized over my father and I, and it felt like my parents weren't even married. So, my mother recently found out that my father has been having an affair with a coworker of his for the past 2 months. I had no idea about this, so this definitely came as a shock to me. They're getting a divorce, and my mother is planning on moving out of our house soon. And my mother told me that I should start packing my stuff so that we can move out as soon as she can sign a lease in an apartment. But to be honest, I don't really want to move out with her, and I'd much rather stay with my father. I know what he did was terrible, but I still wouldn't really feel at home or comfortable living alone with my mom. I know that if I live with my father, he'll continue to support and take care of me like he has been doing, unlike my mother. When I told my mother that I wanted to live with my father, she had a mental breakdown. She started telling me that her father broke up our family, and that he broke her, and that me choosing him over her is a massive betrayal from me towards her. My mother got really emotional, and I felt bad about this all. Am I the a-hole? If the dad was earning less than your mother in this time period, it makes sense that your mother was more career-focused to manage the house expenses. While this doesn't mean the family can be neglected, it also hints that maybe your father was having affairs for a long time and chose to remain distant from the mother, which further drove her away to focus on work. He was only caught this time. No reason to think he wasn't cheating before. Do you know for sure that your mom wasn't significantly earning more, or rather that your father brought home lesser income? During your childhood, not current situation. My father earned more than my mother and took care of the majority of the bills at home. He was a hard worker, but always made sure that he had time for the family and never let his career come between us. And because my father did so much for the family, my mother was rarely present and was always focused on her career and put us on the back burner, which made us feel neglected. We always expressed to her how we felt, but she never listened. Do you feel him cheating on your mom was justified then? It just sounds like you're okay with everything that happened. Have you ever had a proper sit-down with your mom about everything that happened? Has your father apologized or showed remorse at all? Was he willing to work through this? Don't get me wrong. I think what my dad did was completely wrong and terrible. He should have been more upfront about all of this and opted for separation/divorce before getting involved with another woman. I'm really not sure what has happened between my parents specifically, but my father made it clear that my mother and him getting a divorce changes nothing about his relationship with me. Not a-hole. Your father did not cheat on you. And while affair/cheating can be very hurtful and disruptive for a family dynamic, infidelity is never a simple thing. While the act itself seems simple, what brought him to that act can be anything from drunken impulse to years of neglect, distance, and loneliness. What I try to say is, you currently have a hurt, angry mother and a defensive, guilty father. Neither one of them will give you a precise and correct testimony about what happened. Choose your own path. Huh? Father chose sex instead of having a divorce. Doesn't matter if it was neglect. He is an adult man who could divorce his wife anytime he wanted, but instead choose to break his wedding vows. To me, it seems like a character flaw. That viewpoint doesn't really help Opie make the decision, and as the commenter above you pointed out, nobody has the full picture of what has happened in the parents' marriage. Not even Opie.